Welcome back to Decentralounge, brought to you by GlobalStake, your truly decentralized SOC 2 Type 2 certified institutional bare metal blockchain infrastructure provider. I'm your host, Ryan Hazinski, head of protocol partnerships, along with my co-host, Wyatt Clancy, our VP of growth. Today, we're joined by Max Kaufman, founder of MomentumX Global. Max operates at the intersection of business development, go-to-market strategy, and ecosystem growth, with a strong focus on helping high-growth startups and enterprise organizations unlock real commercial opportunities in Web3 and beyond. Before launching MomentumX, Max held leadership roles across the blockchain and data ecosystem, including head of business development at Helika, where he worked with leading gaming studios and Web3 platforms, as well as roles at Chainstack and Oracle, building experience across infrastructure, cloud, and enterprise sales. Through MomentumX, Max is focused on helping companies scale through strategic partnerships and curated global events, having already executed dozens of private events across major innovation hubs such as New York, London, Dubai, Singapore, and beyond, connecting founders, investors, and operators in meaningful high-signal environments. Today, we'll talk about Max's journey into the blockchain industry, how he thinks about go-to-market and business development in a crowded ecosystem, and why curated relationships and real-world interactions still play such a critical role in driving growth in Web3. Max, welcome to Decentralounge. We're thrilled to have you. Why don't we just start off with sort of your backstory and how you got involved in this crazy, wonderful world of Web3?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ryan, for the introduction. Thank you, Wyatt, for also having me on board for today. Really appreciate it. Yeah, getting into Web3 was pretty crazy. I guess my background, as you said, I had experience working at Oracle. That was my first job out of university, but I was actually a finance major in college. So I was studying finance, economics, et cetera, in school. And then, moved to Austin, Texas to start my career in tech sales and learning everything about data and database and cloud infrastructure, which is extremely exciting, as you guys know. But back then I was told by a lot of people in Austin, as you guys probably are aware, Austin's pretty progressive tech city. So a lot of people were already in like the Bitcoin and the blockchain space. And I would hear about it all the time, but unfortunately, never really thought too much of it and never put any time looking into it, putting any money, et cetera. And this was back in like 2018, which kind of regret, but we all got here. And my journey and path into it was actually from NBA Top Shot when that started heating up. And that was, I first found out about NBA Top Shot towards the end of 2019. And then a really good friend of mine who we kind of joined the space together. We had a conversation. I still remember I was just like in a parking garage. He called me up and he was like, "Did you see that Ja Morant NBA highlight get sold for $35,000?" And I did. I had saw it on X on the feed, and I was like, "Yeah, what's going on with this?" And we started deep diving into what NBA Top Shot was, and that got us into the NFT rabbit hole and blockchain rabbit hole, and started buying packs ourselves. And we actually had our own Twitch stream called Big Dog Brothers back in the day, where we would do NBA analysis, and we'd open up packs on NBA Top Shot, and then we do both like player analysis as well as price action analysis as the cards were trading. And we kind of joined in a really nice spot. We weren't early per se, but we were still at the stage in which you'd open up a pack for $10 and you can make, at minimum $25, $30, $50 from that pack, just flipping a couple of these moments. So money was pretty solid, and it was apparent. And especially as you got more and more of these like rare cards or moments, you can make like pretty good money from it. And so that was when really the rush started coming in, I would say in like that 2020, 2021 bull cycle. And the NBA Top Shot was just the beginning. But then from my experience selling database infrastructure, I started understanding blockchain technologies pretty quickly, and the value of NFTs, DeFi, et cetera. So Top Shot was the beginning, but that was the unlock for me, diving way deeper into the entire ecosystem across everything NFTs, everything DeFi, these tokens launching left and right, blockchain networks, et cetera. And I was really just, I would say, a retail trader or investor, if you want to call it that, until my first job with Chainstack early 2022.
So how did that transition go, from Oracle? I'm sure you had friends in the industry at Oracle that were, either telling you to stay. Oracle has such an amazing program for people that just get out of school. How did that transition work for you going into your first crypto role, and how was that whole process?
Yeah, I was pretty grateful that I actually had an in-between stop as well. I worked for a startup in the e-commerce space for 9 months. This was when I was getting deep into crypto on the personal side. So I would say it was like tough at first transitioning into more of that startup mentality, because Oracle is such a massive company. And I started as, in the SMB market, but I'd worked up to selling in enterprise, to banks and companies up to 5 billion asset under management, and realized real quickly that there's people that I think are really meant for that type of environment, in which you only have 100 accounts that you can reach out to. I only had 4 different states that I could essentially sell into. Whereas when I moved into this e-commerce company, I could talk to people in Australia and London, and anybody and everybody that was launching a Shopify store could potentially be our client. And I personally loved that motion of having freedom of, you can talk to anybody, you can build relationships with anybody all over the world, which was what brought me into was what got me interested in working in the crypto industry, just because I noticed that 2021, 22 timeframe, some of the smartest people in the world were working in the industry, and it was global. So it was completely global. But that's not to say that the transition wasn't easy, because as you guys know, there's still a difference from working in a normal startup and working in a crypto startup. That being, the industry just changes nonstop. I mean, there's updates, especially when the market's real volatile. You go from like everyone is euphoric highs, they want to buy, to the other side of the market where nobody wants to spend money, and you got to really work to get opportunities over the finish line. And then it's obviously 24/7. You have to maintain all these global relationships. It's technology is advancing every single day, so it's a beast in itself. And I think it's not for the faint of heart. And to be successful in the industry, transitioning in the industry, you need to realize that, and you need to be humble, and you need to just be dead set on working hard and doing what you need to do to get whatever your job is done, and realize that every day is probably going to be different, and it's okay. But it's like that on steroids though, so it's not for the faint of heart, but it's a lot of fun in my opinion.
Well, let's talk about how jumping into the industry. Obviously, you are a relationships guy. I met you at ETH Denver a little over a year ago, and you and I immediately hit it off. And it's clear you're excellent at what you do, Max. And so what made you think, I'm great at building these global relationships. How do I turn this into a business? So let's maybe dig into, why you wanted to start MomentumX Global, and everything that's happened since you started the company, because it seems like it's just a runway success and you're just absolutely killing it. So love to dig into that part of your story.
Right. I appreciate that. I mean, I tell people all the time that it's never an overnight success at all. So even through MomentumX Global, even though we're technically have only been around since January of 25, a lot of the relationships and a lot of the clients that we've worked with this past year have been people that I've met since 2020, quite honestly. And again, like to your point, that's the power of relationships, and that's the power of being in it for the long run, and not shortchanging anything, and not thinking too short term, and because that can kind of burn a lot of bridges and kind of kill a lot of potential deals in the future, is if you try too aggressively to get something done and over the finish line in a short notice. So I've always been long-term focused, and since I joined the industry, I personally was both genuinely like very curious about the technology, about blockchain, about learning. Still to this day, I try to learn something new every single day. I try to give value first before I take anything. And that's what I've been leading with since I joined the industry, even though a lot of the times I know something might not come from it instantly. It's okay. Again, it's part of being passionate about the industry, being passionate about helping people out, helping companies out, finding ways in which I could potentially add value to somebody or to a company, and not ask for anything in return. And that's what I did for pretty much my entire career, in alignment as well as my last company's having to have KPIs and, having to hit quota, et cetera, et cetera. So always try to balance both sides of it, but it's always been from just myself being really passionate about the industry, and excited about what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then with MomentumX Global, I just saw a strong opportunity, with the team around me. Again, it's not just myself. I have a founding partner with Anton, head of events and operations, Emily, and it's advisors all over the world. And it came down to the last couple of startups that I've been a part of with Chainstack and Helika. I've seen a lot of things, what works and what doesn't work. And going back to what I'm fully passionate and fulfilled by is really just helping other people out, helping other companies out. And what I get to do on a day-to-day basis with MomentumX Global is I have the freedom to work with a bunch of different founders, a bunch of different companies, a bunch of different projects, and leveraging what I've learned, over the last 6 years that I've been really in the startup space and been around the crypto industry, and taking that expertise and adding value to more people. So that's what really fulfills me and gets me excited on a daily basis.
So for our listeners that maybe don't have all the context around what your enterprise does fully, could you give kind of a little overview of, someone comes to you, what's the process, and then kind of looking 2 or 3 years out, how do you think that arc will look, over time as your business grows and you grow with your clients as well, and how will that change?
Yeah, so when we started MomentumX Global, January of 25, our main thesis was, and this was when the market was actually still very hot on the token side with AI and meme coins, et cetera. And I was doing a lot of stuff in consumer gaming space. Our main thesis was, as a seed stage company or a Series A company breaking into like a new vertical that you hadn't sold into before, given like my expertise, Anton's expertise in go-to-market sales and taking things from 0 to 1, and having technical knowledge in the blockchain industry and having relationships all over the world. Our main value proposition was actually more sales and business development, consulting and advisory services for these founders that needed a jump start. So the first couple of clients that we had, early days, like we didn't do anything on the event side. We really just learned everything about their product suite, learned everything about their goals, their ICP, who they're selling into, what companies they want to be connected to, and would build a go-to-market strategy, a plan, and then help with facilitating warm introductions of very strategic leads and prospects for them. And then the events came from one of our first clients, Beamable. They wanted to do an event at ETH Denver in 2025, and they were talking about hiring someone to do it for them. My last company, Helika, with Anton, another leader called Mark Alluro, we built this strategy in 2024 doing high-value events all over the world. So we did 16 high-value events in 8 months, closed a substantial amount of revenue doing it. And what we would do is just fly to different cities, and instead of having to chase somebody down on LinkedIn or email for an introductory call, we would just say, hey, we're in London tonight. We have food, drink, music, rooftop bar. Would you like to come and meet other people in the gaming industry? And that hit rate was really successful for us. And we did a really effective job getting engaged with all those contacts doing that. So after doing that for 16 events in 8 months, you can imagine the amount of people that we met all over the world and the relationships that we were able to build and, the business that we were able to do from that. So when this first company said, hey, we want to do an event, I was like, that's a no-brainer. We can help out with that. Let's do it for you. We brought over our network to them, for the event. We booked the venue and helped them generate 70 leads from it. And they were like, oh my gosh, we need help following up afterwards, as well as let's do 8 more events. And that's when I started repositioning and I guess deepening our service model into more of events driven business, but less of just events to do an event, structuring it in a way in which now this is kind of like our tagline, helping companies turn live events into scalable, repeatable revenue engines. So what we do is everyone loves events, and events are great for marketing and branding purposes. There's always time and place to have your brand out there, to do an event, to have an excuse to invite people to something. What we work on is going way deeper we have Emily leading event production side, understanding, do you want a rooftop, a brunch, a yacht, a dinner, like XYZ? What type of event do you want to make your brand look really good? And then on the business development front, we almost plug in as enterprise BD as a service and understand ICP, buyer personas, average contract value, like really like everything we need to know to ensure that the people that we invite to your event, everyone can potentially do business with your company, or they're strategic to be there in general. So you kind of you kill two birds with one stone with marketing and branding, as well as getting the right people in the room for your business to be successful. And you design it in a way in which it's just a very organic, industry curated networking event. So everyone has a good time attending the event, and then they're there for you. So that was the story of how it happened, and that's kind of how we've repositioned our service offerings and what we've been doubling down on.
Well, I'll jump in and say that in every city that I've been to in the last year, I've come to one of your events, Max. And one of the things that I want to give you a lot of credit for, and Emily, because not only do you find these great venues, but I think that last piece that you talked about, the curation of the folks that actually get into the event, is unlike any other event that I have typically go to. Because a lot of them, they're just cattle calls. Hey, sign up, you get in, so and then it's just hit or miss. But you do such a good job with separating the signal from the noise that, like, whether it's the short panels that I've been to at some of your events, the people who are up there are just leaders in the industry in particular verticals, a lot of great dialogue. You also get to the point where, like, I'm just wandering the room and chatting with people, and it seems like everybody I run to is super interesting, really well connected. And do you think that that's something obviously you said it's a legacy of the relationships that you've built, but do you feel this is why you've built such a successful company, because people want to come back to you again and again to use you for your events? And how is this rolling out this year with, the slight challenge and the downturn in the market, as we look into 2026?
Yeah, it's great. I'll touch on the second part in a bit. It's a really good question. The first part, it comes down to actually solving a personal problem that I've had. Because as you guys know, like Ryan, we met at an event. We go to 1,000 conferences, 1,000 events. I think a lot of people have fatigue over traveling and going to all these events in the industry. Like it's really fun, but also when it's your job, it does get a little bit tiresome. And what I personally found as a problem, like when I was leading sales at companies, which events do you go to? Because especially if you're in cities like Dubai or LA, the traffic is bad. You like, I'm going to go to this event because these big brands are sponsoring it. You take 45 minutes to get there, and then you show up, nobody's there, or like it's not relevant, it's not curated, etc. You wasted time, you wasted money, you bought an Uber. Like I would get upset about that. So this all comes from like personally, when we do these events, like I want to meet really good people at these events at the end of the day. Like I personally like want the event to be really strong and well curated, first for like myself, our company, but also I understand that everyone's time is valuable. If you are going to have our event on your calendar and you're going to go 2 hours out of your way to come to our event, you better get something out of it. Like that's how I think. And so that goes into detailing the curated guest list and understanding and making sure, if we're doing an event around finance or TradFi or asset management or XYZ venture capital, whatever we're doing an event on, you will meet those people there. Because if you don't, then we're wasting your time at the end of the day. So that's kind of to simplify why, or what we do and like why we spend so much time curating the list, is because we know everyone's time is valuable and we want you to have a really strong experience. And one of my favorite things to hear is at our events, if people meet each other, sometimes people will say, "Hey, we closed a big transaction because I met somebody at your event." We're not getting a cut of that at all. That's just like something that happens at our event, and I'm fulfilled and I'm happy that happened. Like that like fires me up if that happens. So I try to always, when we go about that, like think of it in that way, in which your time's valuable and we want to make sure that you use it to the best of your advantage. And on the second part is it's a very good question, because it's not easy with the market. Last year, I would say, I think we had I wouldn't say like false hope, but a lot of our companies we're working with last year are more native crypto companies in which token prices were higher, the market was much better. They were like, oh yeah, let's throw the money in. We don't care, we just want to do more and more and more events. And then heading into towards the end of last year, starting to see the market turn a lot, and obviously token prices, unfortunately, were going down. We're sinking. A lot of these companies have tightened up on budgets. So, usually when there's more pressure and things are tougher, you can either like back down, or you can really analyze, okay, how can we almost add too much value, make it too good to be true, in which we can find companies to work with that would find value and want to still allocate event budget for us. So for us, doubling down on it's always been making events like produce really high quality and high end, with Emily leading that. And then to complete the value proposition, it's getting everybody in the room that's relevant to a business's goals and really holding their hand to help them, position these events as revenue engines so they can clearly articulate value to whoever they're selling, the budget into. And in a lot of the case now, it's less. As you guys know, in the last 6 months, we've been heads down on the institutional, the TradFi, and crypto intersection. So a lot of the companies now that we're speaking to on a day-to-day basis are more of the proper like infrastructure companies that actually generate revenue, that have forecasts, that have pipeline, that have raised substantial venture capital money, and have clear business model, versus some of these other like crypto projects we worked in the past that were just like, oh, our token's up, we're going to spend a lot more money on events. So it just comes from understanding, analyzing the market, and seeing like, where does our value add the most value to other companies. And in this case, it's working with more infrastructure, more data focused companies that are working in the traditional finance space now.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me. I think it might be time for a GlobalStake event at a chateau in Bordeaux, maybe. So maybe MomentumX Global contact at that point. But for people to get in touch with you, either reaching out on the business development side or just to follow along with the events you're putting on and see if they can get into that very well curated list, which Ryan mentioned, and it is true. I've been to multiple events, so for the listeners, it is true. The events are phenomenal. The curation is phenomenal. So, get in touch with Max. Where do they find you, Max?
LinkedIn. It's not hard to miss me. So my name, and I have a lightning bolt next to it, and then there's also Emily Dunn on our team. She's very active on LinkedIn as well. And then MomentumX.Global is our website. We have a form that you can fill out there. And we also have an email, events@MomentumX.Global, if you want to reach us there as well.
We'll be sure to link all those when the episode appears. And of course, if you're watching, you could certainly reach out to Wyatt or myself, because we consider Max good friends at this point, and happy to introduce you as well. But for those who are watching or tuning in and listening to today's episode of Decentralounge, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Decentralounge. Take care, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Wyatt. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.